The Denver Nuggets and Peyton Watson are still reportedly far apart on a deal, and the first offer reportedly came in 4 years, $70 million, and Peyton Watson just simply wants more. And so while the Denver Nuggets are now dealing with the second tax apron, the pressure's now on, and Peyton Watson could potentially either take the qualifying offer or force a sign and trade. We'll talk a little bit about that in the uncomfortable situation the Denver Nuggets now find themselves in. Plus, we're going to talk about DeMar DeRozan, and with teams being out on LeBron now, with him going to Philly, Miami, Denver, and Cleveland all reportedly are looking at the veteran to provide some offense. Ben Mathurin reportedly is getting some interest from the New Orleans Pelicans in restricted free agency. And finally, could Jonathan Kuminga end up with the Cleveland Cavaliers? We're going to talk about all these things plus more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of the Full Court Podcast. My name is Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at the Full Court YT on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the start of the 2026-27 NBA season. We can only do that with your guys' help. About 62% of you guys that watch the channel every single day have not yet hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Help a brother out. We're trying to get that. In exchange for that, I'll give you guys the best daily NBA content around, unbiased, all that type of stuff. With that said, let's get into it, man. So Peyton Watson reportedly and the Denver Nuggets are still very far apart on the deal. This is the first time that we've heard numbers. This one comes from Brett Siegel of Clutch Points in his own blog that reported that the offers were around the $20 to $24 million range, which is well below what Peyton Watson wants. Peyton Watson's hoping to get more aligned with what Christian Braun got at 5 years, $125 million, whereas so far the Denver Nuggets offers come in at about 4 years, $70 million in that regard. So that means that because of that gap is that Peyton Watson is reportedly thinking about taking the $6.5 million player option. This one coming from Mark Stein, who said this. League sources say Watson, like Detroit's Jalen Duren, has been weighing the unappealing prospect of playing out the 26-27 season on a qualifying offer, with the intent to become an unrestricted free agent next summer. Actually doing so, mind you, leaving millions on the table. So this is a interesting point because I don't think anybody would have thought with the Denver Nuggets and what they're trying to do in keeping that roster competitive in Jokic's prime still, because I still think Jokic is in his prime, he's still playing at an MVP level, is that, you know, now you could be losing a two-way player, a player that was so important to your defensive identity, which once his absence was there, you saw in the playoffs. And, you know, we'll see what happens. Could this be something, right? Should Watson seriously consider taking the qualifying offer? And the reason why I say yes on this, that he could very well take that, not necessarily that he should, but that he could, is that it's the only power that the players really have in restricted free agency. Like, that's it, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't re-sign with your team. They still hold your bird rights, but it's very rare that a player that takes the qualifying offer re-signs with their team. Miles Bridges was the most recent to do it. I think one other player's done it in NBA history, right? It would send a clear message to Denver that he believes that he's worth more and that he's willing to bet on himself, and it would put them on their heels. You can't trade a player while they're on the qualifying offer unless they decide to waive their bird rights, which is unlikely. And so then at that point, like, you could still do a sign and trade even if you're unrestricted free agent next offseason, but he has no need to do that and to help your team out, right? If last year was Peyton Watson's breakout year, and let's say he does take it a step further next year, you could end up paying even more money than what he wants and still losing out on him, right? Teams like the Clippers, the Bucks, and the Hawks have already shown interest in Peyton Watson, and they could set up their books to be able to take a run at him next season. Now, it is risky for Peyton Watson to do that, right? He's leaving millions on the table. He didn't miss time at the end of last season because of an injury. And then you look at one bad season or a bad injury, and his market is in the toilet, right? And it could take him a couple of years to rebound from that if those were to happen, right? An offer in the $20 to $24 million range is still life-changing, guaranteed money. But at the same time, I understand that, you know, players, this is where they have their power at, and restricted free agency is not favorable to players. It's more favorable to the teams, and that's the way that it's set up. I think you also have to fairly question is a 4-year, $70 million offer such a low ball offer for a player like Peyton Watson? You know, you can go two ways with it, right? Like, look, we've seen players have breakout, and I'm not saying that I think that this is Peyton Watson. I want to be clear that I'm not saying this. I'm talking generally around the NBA. You have seen players that have had breakout years and that have still been young, and you thought, well, damn, this is just the beginning of it. They're going to take it even further, and that's kind of where they stay at, right? Like the breakout showed flashes, it showed tremendous upside, and Denver knows that other teams are interested, and you typically pay more to keep your own guys. That's just the way that the NBA works, right? So in a way, yes, it absolutely looks like a lowball offer from the Denver Nuggets to give him a 4-year $70 million deal, which works out to $17.5 million if my math is correct per year, right? But I do think as well that Denver is being responsible. Watson has not proven enough to demand star level money yet. And I know that sucks to say, and it may seem like I'm anti-player by saying that, but again, I'm here to be objective. It'd be different if you were looking at even 2 years of Peyton Watson being this. It's been 1 season of Peyton Watson playing at the level that he's played at. Now, he's always shown defensive flashes, but the offense is also part of the reason why he's expecting and he's wanting to get paid more. And I don't think you can separate that. And even in his breakout year, he averaged 15 points, 14.6 points per game. So it's not like he averaged 20 points per game. But to his credit, he's gotten better every single year. From 3.3 points his first year, playing 23 games, to 6.7 his second year, playing 80 games, to 8.1 points per game, playing 68 in year 3. And he played 54 games last season, the second lowest of his NBA career, where he averaged 14.6. So there's still signs that he's steadily been improving as the role and stuff there's been improved. But I want to be clear here. He's not had star-level performance yet. Now, he's had really good two-way performance. And with the defense that he brings, being around 15, 16 points per game is more than enough to have two-way impact for a team like that. He doesn't have to average 20, but we just saw a player that was considered a defensive specialist in Nickeil Alexander-Walker have a 20-point-per-game season last season. So it's the question there, right? And it still goes down to the second tax apron and how that's restricting the Denver Nuggets, right? Denver is trying to contend. You don't let a 23-year-old with upside, a two-way upside at that can defend, that can run the floor, that is growing into larger roles. He's shown that. You don't just replace that player easily. You do not do that. And you already know that he fits your system. He can play with Jokic, and that's the type of thing. And I get it, and I understand the idea and concept of protecting flexibility, but, are you going to try to protect flexibility to just get a player that's probably not going to be as good as Peyton Watson? Like, that's the question that you have here. But matching Spencer Jones has pushed them into a tighter spot with the second tax apron, and that's a spot that reportedly we all knew that they did not want to be in. So the question now becomes about what do they do with Peyton Watson? I don't have the answer to that. Let me know what you guys think down below. Hopefully they can get this worked out. If not, Peyton Watson may very well take the qualifying offer, bet on himself, and we'll see. The next bit of news that we have, DeMar DeRozan has dropped some news in regard. Shams Charania has dropped some news in regards to DeMar DeRozan, where he said this. I'm told Miami, Denver, and Cleveland are among teams interested in DeMar DeRozan. The Heat and the Cavs are among the finalists for LeBron before he signed with the 76ers. DeRozan had a partial guarantee on his contract of only $10 million of the total $26.74 million. DeRozan is represented by Aaron Goodwin, who appeared in 77 games last season. We all know that. He's going to be 37 years old, 77 years old playing basketball. It's crazy. 37 years old next season. And so I think when you look at this, is that all these teams make sense to varying degrees, right? You have Miami, who needs some scoring. They need half-court creation. He doesn't bring the shooting that they need, but if they do sign DeMar, they can still go after a Bradley Beal if they decide to do so, which is a player that we've heard, that they could be very interested in. They can still maybe go after a Russell Westbrook, who was on the Kings with DeMar DeRozan last season, right? He does give them scoring. He gives them late clock offense, the ability to get to the free throw line, clutch moments. DeMar DeRozan is still one of the best clutch players in the NBA, and so DeRozan has always made sense for Miami. Right now, of course, you're going to go after LeBron if you have a chance to go after LeBron, but DeMar has always made sense for the Miami Heat. But the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Denver Nuggets may need him a little bit more, right? Like, especially if Denver does not bring Peyton Watson back or the situation continues to drag out, you may need that secondary scorer. And, I think what DeMar could potentially bring to Denver as well is a player that can do, when Jokic's off-court minutes are there, he can really thrive in those off-court minutes and give them a floor raiser when Jokic is off the court. And I do think that, he's a proven bucket getter. So being able to help Denver with that would definitely make sense. I do think Cleveland, who missed out on LeBron as well, can make sense for him there to varying degrees also. I think that, DeMar's role has to be clear. DeMar DeRozan is who he is as a player. He's not the future for any team. He's the right now. He's a right now bucket that you can get out there and get you for a team that needs some scoring when it comes to that. So I think that DeMar is still a player that's worth it at age 37. He played 77 games last season. He's always been a pretty durable and healthy player. His mid-range shot making, his ability to get to the free throw line, what he does late in the clock, all that type of stuff is there. And for playoff teams, that matters hugely, right? But I do think teams have to be careful in what they're expecting from DeMar. He's 37. Eventually, the decline is going to happen. He's never been a high-volume three-point shooter. It is we're there. And I do think fit is going to have to matter with a player like this more than reputation. And so you're not building around DeMar. But then again, I don't think any team's looking to build around DeMar at this point. They're looking to bring him in and give him an opportunity to do what he does best and see where that leaves you. And I can't really knock them for that with DeMar DeRozan. So we'll see. I think DeRozan can absolutely help teams today, right? But the team that signs him has to know what they're getting in this version of DeMar DeRozan and not the reputation of who's he's historically been, which is a big part in that. Let's move into another young player, though, in Ben Mathurin, who's a restricted free agent as well. And reportedly, the New Orleans Pelicans have some interest in Ben Mathurin. Now, this is a player that I'm honestly surprised he's still out there, to be 100% honest with you. This also comes from Brett Siegel, who says this. According to Brett Siegel, again, said that, the Pelicans are being brought up as a potential landing spot for Mathurin amid a prolonged stint for the 24-year-old scoring wing in restricted free agency. The Siegel wrote that there is new interest in Mathurin, and it's interesting that New Orleans is involved once more in talks revolving around the Clippers guard. So, Ben Mathurin is still a very young player, right, who still has upside left. He's shown some two-way ability, not consistently. He's shown some scoring ability as well. You look at last season, 17 points, 5.4 rebounds, 2.4 assists, and he shot the ball 42% from the field, 32% from three, and 87% from the free throw line as well, right? So Ben Mathurin is another player that can fit that scoring boost and upside player for a lot of teams. And the Pelicans are a young team that kind of makes some sense into that. I still don't know what the Pelicans are doing with their roster. They do have a lot of talent on the roster. I always say that. But the Pelicans can use some scoring upside. Now, I think that Trey Murphy III is ready to make that next leap to being a 25, 26 point per game scorer. But I do think with the price probably being reasonable at this point, it seems like the Clippers are ready to move on, or they're just waiting to match a deal. It makes some sense. You have to be careful with restricted free agency money, though, because at this point in his career, Ben Mathurin is still a very inconsistent player, right? The shooting splits are decent, but, uneven when it comes to that one. And I do think that, the Clippers aren't in a rush to pay him big money, and neither should the Pelicans in regards to that either. And I do think the Pelicans could just be doing their due diligence, or they could be looking at a player that is intriguing on that wing, and maybe it frees them up to do a trade for Trey Murphy or something like that, gain some more assets back, and have another young player that they can add to this young core of players that they have, if they decide to do that while still stacking assets. Best of both worlds if the Pelicans decide to do that. Again, I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you guys to sell you that the Pelicans are going to sign Ben Mathurin and make him part of their core or anything like that. The Pelicans are already an interesting enough team because you just don't know what the hell they're going to do. They have Jeremiah Fears there, who's really good, a young Derek Queen there, who's really good, albeit inconsistent and flawed in some areas. Eve Missy, still 22 years old, right? You got, Jordan Hawkins there. He's 24 years old. You got a lot of young players here. Even, Trey Murphy III, he's 26, right? They only have one player on their entire roster right now that's over 30, and that's DeAndre Jordan at 38. The next oldest player is DeJounte Murray at 29. So, this is a team with young upside with it. Why not add another young player while you're still trying to figure out what your future could look like? Can't be mad at the Pelicans for that. All right, let's get into the last topic. Jonathan Kuminga, which I hate Jonathan Kuminga news because he's just talked about too much for a player that plays very inconsistent at the role that he does. But reportedly is that there is some interest from the Cleveland Cavaliers in regards to this. This one comes from the plain dealer Chris Fedor, who wrote this. Plan B has always been Jonathan Kuminga, but Jonathan Kuminga conversation related to the Cavs is very, very complicated. There's nothing straightforward about it because of the financial situation the Cavs are in. The Cavs are about $18 million away from the luxury tax without signing James Harden. Do you think James Harden is going for $18 million annually? Probably not. I'm going to take the over on that one. The minute James Harden signs the contract, the Cavs cannot offer Kuminga $15 million annually, which is what he wants. He also went in and said this, that sign and trade could be an option for Cleveland to acquire Jonathan Kuminga, but they don't really have an avenue for it. They can be really, really creative with it, but that becomes complicated as well of apron rules, hard caps, and stuff like that. The Cleveland Cavaliers being interested in Jonathan Kuminga does make some sense. They have a hole in the wing that they can need to fill, and Jonathan Kuminga, even though a flawed player, does bring some athleticism, does bring some scoring upside, doesn't do a lot for them defensively at all. I just don't trust Jonathan Kuminga's defense, even though, granted, he has shown some flashes of being an active and engaged defender. I just don't necessarily believe in it, right? So that's what you have in regards to that. You still have Max Strus here, who's getting paid. But, outside of that depth at the wing, what you're looking at Jalen Tyson for that, like, it's some questions there. So, if the Cavs do re-sign James Harden into that regard, then cool, great. It is what it is. But I think that there's some doubt there. You have Malik Thomas, who had a great summer league for you as well. You're looking at that part. So, we'll see. But seems like Jonathan Kuminga could have an interest in a partner with the Cleveland Cavaliers. We just got to see if that's going to be there, because it's not necessarily the most cleanest path. But that's going to do it for today's episode and updates. Make sure you guys are following us at the Full Court YT. Oh, before that, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. Sound off in that comment section down below on how you feel about all the topics down below and what they mean for the respective teams and players talked about in that. You can follow us at the Full Court YT. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. The NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything basketball and NBA related. And I'll catch you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
Been a presentation of the Breaks Media.